Imagine walking into a building that looks like an ordinary medical facility. Doctors dressed in white coats, laboratories filled with advanced scientific equipment. But behind this calm appearance, one of the darkest crimes in human history was taking place. A place where people were no longer considered human. They were simply treated as test subjects. This is the true story of a secret unit of the Japanese military, a unit that later became known as Hell on Earth, Unit 731. In 1931, Japan invaded the Manchuria region of China and occupied it. The area soon became a massive testing ground for the Japanese military. A few years later, in 1936, the Imperial Japanese Army launched a top-secret project, a project that was officially presented as a program for disease prevention and water purification. But the truth was something far darker. This project, known as Unit 731, was led by a military physician named Shiro Ishii. The unit's primary goal was to develop biological and chemical weapons for warfare. Its main base was built in the Pingfang district, near the Chinese city of Harbin. A massive complex containing dozens of buildings and thousands of military and medical personnel. But what turned this place into a nightmare were the methods used for their research. Most of the prisoners in Unit 731 were ordinary civilians. Chinese, Korean, Russian, and even children. But inside this facility, no one called them by their real names. They were given a single label, Maruta, which means logs of wood. The scientists of Unit 731 believed these people were nothing more than experimental tools. Some prisoners were arrested without any trial. They were taken into buildings they would never walk out of again. According to estimates, between 3,000 and 5,000 people were killed in this facility alone, and there are no recorded survivors. The scientists of Unit 731 wanted to understand how the human body reacts to deadly diseases in extreme conditions. But their research methods were horrifying. Prisoners were deliberately infected with diseases such as plague, anthrax, cholera, typhus. They were forced to suffer while researchers observed how the diseases progressed and how they died. In some cases, bombs filled with bacteria were even tested on villages. These attacks caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people in China. One of the most terrifying experiments was performing dissections on living humans. Without any anesthesia, doctors removed prisoners' internal organs to study the effects of disease on the human body. In some experiments, prisoners' limbs were exposed to extreme cold until they froze solid. Then, to study blood loss and tissue damage, the frozen limbs were amputated. In some cases, limbs were even reattached to the wrong parts of the body. Prisoners were tied to wooden posts while bombs contaminated with bacteria were tested on them. In other experiments, they were used to test flamethrowers and explosive weapons. Unit 731 did not operate only inside laboratory buildings. They dropped bombs carrying plague-infected fleas from airplanes onto cities. Disease-infected rats were also released into the wild, triggering widespread epidemics and the deaths of thousands of innocent people. Some estimates even suggest that Japan's biological weapons program caused the deaths of between 200,000 and 300,000 people. In 1945, World War II was coming to an end, and Soviet forces were advancing toward Manchuria. Members of Unit 731 decided to destroy all evidence of their activities. Buildings were blown up, documents were burned, and many prisoners were killed to ensure no witnesses remained. The soldiers and doctors of the unit disappeared into the chaos of war. After the war ended, many expected those responsible for these crimes to be brought to justice. But something shocking happened. The leader of Unit 731, Shiro Ishii, provided the United States with data from the experiments. In return, he and many of his colleagues were granted immunity from prosecution. Some of these scientists later went on to work in universities and scientific institutions. Decades later, documents and testimonies slowly began to reveal the truth. Despite the large amount of evidence, this remains one of the most controversial war crimes of World War II. Some victims and their families are still searching for justice. And many historians believe this tragedy shows how science, without ethics, can lead to unimaginable horrors. Unit 731 is not just a dark chapter of history. It is a reminder that when humanity is forgotten, science can become a weapon. And perhaps the most important lesson history teaches us is that such horrors must never be allowed to happen again.
Love this content? Hit the subscribe button and join our community. Turn on notifications to be the first to watch our new videos.